Hi, I'm Tasman Graham from Advision, and I'll be leading our conversation with JJ. And look, I'll open with an apology. I've been suffering from man flu this week, so if it gets bad, I'll try my utmost to do a cool Darren Lockyer impersonation. Okay, so I'll start with some questions, as is usual. But to keep things rolling, if you want to ask a question and get in early, feel free to put up your hand now, and a microphone will come to you. When I then or later prompt you to ask a question, please state your name and organisation. It's begun already. And contain yourself to just one brief question. So JJ, thank you for such a content-rich presentation, and it was exciting to hear your passion as you brought that home. Australia has benefited tremendously from the rise of China over the last 20 years, and few saw that coming, and fewer still had any real appreciation of the scale and speed with which the rise of China happened. You've shared in your opening actually some pretty staggering numbers there of GDP growth by 2040, so a 20-year look ahead for India of 5 times GDP growth within less than 10 years, becoming the 5th largest consumer market. What do you then see as the size of the prize for an outward-looking Australia as a true growth partner with India?
I think the way Australia is positioned is very unique, and the reason being that there is a very strategic reason as well. And I think with the growing dominance of China being a very large economic partner and a stronghold in the area, I think Australia, Japan, India recognizes that there has to be a balance in this region. So I think it's just beyond trade and investment alone. So I think the context that the countries are getting into is a lot of regional security and regional aspect as well. So when that supportive environment is available, and when a seed investment of, say, a first project of $5 to $10 billion investment is again, it's already flowed in, there is this strong foundation that has been created. So I think 10 years back, if people would have taken a shot at it, people would have said, okay, maybe we wanted 15 billion to become 30 billion, or people would have put a number there. But I think it's just beyond numbers. I think now it's the scale of imagination that Australia has to use. It has to be exponential. And the way we need to collaborate is, again, need to change. And it should not be just education and services. And I think it will grow beyond that. Food security, I think, is one simple example that I will take. Indians will need pulses, okay, because Indians will need protein. Protein intake in India will increase. As Indians, we are not great beef eaters, and therefore we will need more and more pulses. And I was looking at numbers. Adani alone, in our ports, we brought in 5 million tons, I was told, of agri-products into our ports. So this is an area where Australia has this huge strategic fit. So I think it's the areas of resources, agriculture, educational services, training, and even in mining, it's not just about mining companies going there and doing business, but it is about the sector of METS, where people having technology, people having solutions, people having softwares which enable productivity in India to be better. Health safety is one area where India will continuously want talent and services from Australia to go there and train in the areas of health and safety, because you have this excellent business model out here. So I think if you add this all up, it's not going to just have an additional factor. I think it's going to have an exponential multiplication factor. And I would never want to sort of put a number and go wrong. And I think it'll obviously be extremely beneficial if this number of 15 billion is going to go just 10 times more in the next 10 years. So I think that's the way business have to look at.
Thanks. You're looking at investing in 1,500 megawatts of solar projects here. That's actually larger than the Stanwell coal-fired power station in Queensland. That's a big investment, and it's excellent. But how are you going with that? I mean, how much investor certainty can you have on making return on investment given our current policy settings and the state of flux we seem to be in?
See, Adani's business model is very simple. While we need policy certainty, no business model, whether it is in renewable or whether it is in logistics or any ways, can just be built on certain policy settings, giving certain rebates. So the business of 1500 megawatt of renewables is to find solutions for industry with renewable energy. So it is not about just saying that, okay, there's a policy setting that is favorable and everybody wants to do solar and therefore you do solar. No, it's not that. It is about how do we make industries which are clearly in the pathway of reducing the carbon footprint have an enabling feature of a renewable energy supply reliable and affordable to them as a customer. Because ultimately the test of renewable energy is industry taking it as a renewable, reliable and an affordable source of power. So that's the key theme for Jenny and the team who are working on that and to make it a viable solution and therefore have very sustainable rate of returns. And just to add one point is that obviously in any infrastructure the business that we do, we are looking at long term. So we are not looking at some fabulous double-digit rate of returns in terms of our large infrastructure investments. We are looking at the longer term sustainability and longer term suitability of the technologies and the infrastructure that we put in.
Tremendous, thanks. Okay, I have one more question before I throw it open to the floor. I'd like us to talk a bit about the challenge of climate change because it strikes me that the Carmichael Coal Project has come up against extreme and unfair opposition from conservation groups in Australia who are really using the project as a proxy battleground for stronger global policy action. The International Energy Agency's current forecast out to 2040, you shared some of that data, but that shows that even if nations abide by the Paris Agreement pledges, we still will have gone from some 30 gigatons of CO2 emissions globally to well over 35 when we need to be making serious cuts. So we're still struggling with the policy while the problem is getting larger. So do you agree, JJ, that a core challenge with climate change policy making is the need to confront considerations of social equity? I mean, you kind of really talked to this earlier, but if so, if it really is a social equity challenge that we're not really having enough debate about, how does the global community ensure that India is afforded its right to electrify and go up that chain, and with that improve livelihoods and alleviate poverty, while also, as a global community, reducing global emissions?
See, Adani has taken a very responsible, position, and we have a very unique position, right? We are one company where we have 11,000 megawatt installed of thermal energy, 2,000 plus megawatt installed of renewable energy, and we are growing to 20,000 megs in coal-fired plants and 12,000 megawatt of renewable energy, right? So, which is very clearly showing that we are extremely responsible and we'll adapt to the technology that is most suitable and most viable. And this whole thing we'll have to see in this overall context of two things. One is in the overall context of climate change. The 20,000 megawatt of thermal energy needs, one is a reliable source of coal. Number two, needs the best possible quality of coal to keep the net positive impact on climate change neutral or lower. The thing about Carmichael is, Carmichael will reduce the carbon footprint of every existing plant which is running Indonesian coal or Indian coal today by say 30 to 40%. That's the fact, that's the matter of fact. That is on the thermal side. Number two, India has got this ambitious plan of 175 gigawatt of renewable energy. And Adani as a company is saying we will do 12 gigawatt of that 175 gigawatt. I don't think there is a parallel in terms of social equity that a business is having this balance. The business is investing in long-term infrastructure. The business is extremely aligned to the local areas of governance that we operate on. And I'll again re-emphasize that our regional strategy for Northern Queensland and Northern Australia is absolutely right and center of that. Is that we clearly recognize the need of this social equity, not just in India, but in the areas we operate. So the point that we always want everyone to understand is that we are a company with a purpose, and it's not just business, and therefore this purpose drives the passion in us. And this is something that we need to be aligned in every sector that we operate, be it the ports, be it the energy sector, or be it the agriculture. And just to say the last point regarding India's need and India's position in this overall climate change and the action plan that they have. India as a country will be having the least amount of carbon footprint per capita. And the life expectancy and the moral obligation that as a global community that we have on this each and every child that is born in India to have at least half of what we have, or not even half, of 1/3 of what we have, even today, 10 years from now, I think it's a very striking thing that we need to remember when we look at India, because it is very easy to get captured by some of the very flashy pictures we see about India, but there is this very dark side of people, like 300 million people not having energy, not even connected to the grid. And obviously when they get connected, they will get connected with solar or wind or coal or oil and gas or nuclear, but they just need energy. So India needs a mix of everything. India needs a balance. India is going to grow, whatever we say, and it's not about policy setting. It is not about what the world will want India to do. Indians in democracy will decide where they want to take their future on.
So just a quick part B to my last question, just extending that a little. Some have argued now for over 15 years that the developed world really should, and for reasons of both pragmatism and morality, fund a program of deploying renewable energy and low emissions technologies across the developing world. What do you think of that? Funding or subsidising that to some degree?
See, I'm a very strong proponent. The jobs of government is to set the context and the policy. Supporting technologies is good, but it always sends bad behavior in industry. So industry will always find the solution. If the policy setting is long-term thinking, if the policy setting is not fuel agnostic, the policy setting is about what is the climate action that we need, what are the goals that we need to achieve our Paris goals, and not be fuel agnostic. Nobody should be worried. We need to achieve that goal, whether we use coal or nuclear, or whether we use wind or solar, or hydro, or geothermal, or biofuel. We should allow the industry to use the technology. Industry has that capability. Industry has the expertise. Industry has that huge depth in their R&D budgets that they can actually plow the moment they know that the governments are giving them this long-term policy stability.
Thank you. Okay, let's open it up. And let me remind you, state your name and organisation, and don't look at my last question as an example. One brief question. Start down here.
Hello. Hi Jay, I'm Tarang Wagela. I work for ABB Enterprise Software and I lead the Intelligent Mining Solutions Technology Department for ABB. My question is related to the power sources for the Carmichael operations. Would you give us some insights into the energy sources that will be used to power the Carmichael operations for the life of the mine? What would the mix look like?
See, Carmichael has got a very unique advantage. The first phase obviously will be very small because we've got a 25 million ton open pit mine to run. So the first phase will be powered by diesel gensets locally, but because that's just 10 megawatts. So it's not a large power consumer in the first sense. But growing into the future, and grid connectivity is a very important thing. So there is a 240 kilometer double circuit line to Strathmore, which will connect it to the grid. And just to remind everybody who is here, Carmichael has the best solar resource in the part of Queensland that we are in. So there will be a large-scale solar facility that will come in Carmichael as well. And this is this diversity that we have, and we are in both the business, right? So Carmichael will have a large-scale solar in the future. Carmichael will be connected to the grid. Carmichael will run diesel or gas in the short term and be a part of the energy sector as well.
Okay, over this way.
Mark Lemkin, SEO and Infrastructure. Great, insightful presentation. Thanks, JJ. Could you give us a brief update on the status of the railway project, please?
Can you repeat that project name, please?
Can you please provide a brief update on the status of the railway project, please?
So, as we all speak about Carmichael, it is including the 388-kilometer railway link standard gauge between Carmichael and Abbott Point. So, as we had earlier indicated, we are looking at the real engineering works to start anywhere from May, June onwards, and construction to start anywhere August, September in terms of early works. So, this year is a year of action, and so it is about getting this project to the next step of execution.
Over this way.
Oh, hi, Scott Southwood from Batch 5 Resources. I'd just like you to remind us what the total capital for the railway project and the mine project is in total, and also your plans for funding that. Okay.
There are obviously a lot of things which are commercial and confidential, so I'm not going to get into a lot of granularity here, and if there are any specific interests in terms of investments, we can sign certain confidentiality agreements and get into those details. But give you a broad sense, as we have shared, we have roughly around say a $2.5 billion rail and around $2.8, $2.9 billion or a $3 billion mine. Okay, so that's the overall size. We've already spent $1.3 billion in the mine, so we've got the balance to spend. And the entire $1.3 billion that was spent on equity. And the company has acquired earlier $1.8 billion Abbott Point as well. We do have various, verticals from where we can leverage, both borrowing in terms of debt as well as in terms of equity. And if we don't see that as any constraint in the given market situation.
You've also applied for North Australia infrastructure funding, is that correct?
Yeah, so there is this funding in terms of NAIF, which is a policy setting that has been done by the government. And we do have a process that goes on there, and which is extremely, in confidence. So what we are saying is that this project will get funded. This project will see execution this year, and there is already a large chunk of equity that has been sunk. And for a lot of people, you'll have to understand this, is that Abbott Point T1 alone, if you see in today's context, is worth more than $4 billion. And we have always said that at an opportune time, we will divest 49% of that. So there is a lot of sources of funds that are available for Adani, and we will use the shareholders' options as and when required.
Thanks. Okay, up the back of the room.
Tim Buckley, IEFA. JJ, you reference a paradigm shift in India's energy markets, and I agree entirely with that. India's energy minister, Piyush Goyal, has made repeated statements that his target is to cease thermal coal imports this decade. So could I ask why pursue a project that's in diametrically opposite direction to Prime Minister Modi's agenda for energy in India? Thank you.
I think, Tim, we'll have to show the whole story to the people who are sitting here. Piyush Goyal has made statements of that in India in a different context. Piyush Goyal has visited Australia many times and has made very clear that Carmichael, coal and Adani's infrastructure in Australia is extremely key to India as well. And while the ministers can have a lot of ambitious targets, we as a business have invested in 10,000 megawatt already and investing another 10,000 megawatt in the coast. And it is more economical to bring coal from Australia or from Indonesia or from South Africa per kilowatt into the power plants that we have built, rather than transporting dirty coal that will be mined in India to those power plants which are in the coast. In India, we must understand one thing, the coal is less than 3000 kilocal. 3000 kilocal coal is great coal in India, okay? And that they call as A grade or whatever grade they want to call it. The coal is extremely low quality, so coal has to be washed. And coal has to be then transported through very cumbersome networks of the Indian railways. Therefore, the cost of landed kilowatt hour or energy cost in terms of coal is much more higher. So it doesn't work economically to take coal to the power plants that we have and to the power plants on the coast. Number two, in terms of climate change, those coals are inferior, so you will burn more coal and create more pollution. And third, Australia has this strategic advantage to be the strategic partner with India and ensure that both clean coal technology and this longer term energy security of India is secure. And last but not the least, if India will mine 1 billion ton coal, India will also mine equivalent or more amount of water along with it. Any mining has to be done after dewatering. So India will always have that sustainable balance in mind. While ambitious targets can be set, water is not a very renewable source that we have, and India's population is growing as well. So we need to see these things in this context. And to add to everything is that India is not a very mature mining economy. And a lot of my friends here who are from the mining base will understand that as well. The regulatory framework in India and the governance mechanisms in India in terms of mining regulations is far behind countries and geographies like Australia. So I think it is the moral responsibility of Australia as well to ensure that while these ambitious targets are heard from ministers who are very responsible and who have targets, we have to put it in the context of the overall sustainability of the business. And we are looking at a business which has to run for the next 30 to 40 years.
Okay, I think I'm getting a wrap up from Kyle. Let me just finish with one last quick one. JJ, I've always loved the phrase, "She who endures conquers." And I think, given the agonising journey you've been on with all the legal challenges and how long it's taken to get to this point with the Carmichael coal project, few could probably savour those words as much as you when you're finally exporting. But may I ask, and it was great to see you still got so much passion and drive, and you're aiming to deliver this year. But can I ask, would you do it again?
See, I'll do it over and over again. And the reason I say it is that I say it with a lot of humility because, see, when you do a project like this, it is more than anything, it's the learning you have, it's the people you meet, the people who stay with you when the chips are down, and the innovation and the passion that the team has. And I really owe it to my team who's there. A lot of people are here with me and a lot of people are back in the office working hard. It is, when I say the team, it's not just about the team within Adani, it's that extended team of each and every one of you who are here. It gives you a very different sense of satisfaction, and when you go back and sleep and you get up the next day morning, you really want to come and do it again. So I'm sure when Carmichael is done, there'll be something else much bigger and more important that India and Australia will need, and you'll see me there.
Thanks, JJ.
I love that. Thanks very much, JJ, because we do know that the world belongs to those who turn up and turn up again and again and again. Thank you. You've been very generous today, sharing your experience and providing for CEDA members and guests a really detailed insight into the local work and the global context. Your dedication and also the demands that you've faced, Adani as a firm, locally, globally, and yourself as such a significant leader. I do very much look forward to further updates as the work progresses, but for now, I hope that our guests will join me again in thanking our keynote speaker, Adani Mining Chief Executive Officer and Country Head, Jeyakumar Janakaraj.